Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Today we are going to talk about another objection that has been leveled against Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi, and this relates to his belief and his ideology, which he strictly adheres to when he says that no one can be declared a kafir in today's times. Or, in other words, excommunication is something which no one is authorized to do today. There are certain stipulations for this belief or this disbelief, as we can call it. So there are certain conditions which the Quran lays out as far as regarding people to be kafir or disbelievers is concerned, and we shall look upon these in detail. But the general view is that as far as the state is concerned, or as far as scholars of Islam are concerned, they are authorized in certain situations to call people as kafir or disbelievers and excommunicate them from Islam. Let us view this word in more detail, and we'll see in this regard that as far as the word kufr is concerned, it is used in two meanings. So one of the meanings in which it is used is ingratitude. So the Quranic verse says, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. We showed him the path. It is now up to him to be grateful or ungrateful. So as you can see, the word kafur has been translated as ungrateful. So one of these meanings is ungrateful. Another meaning of the word kufr is denial, which is more known to us. So Quranic verse reads, فَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِالطَّاغُوتِ وَيُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ. So he who denies Satan and believes in God. So here the word yakfur actually refers to who denies someone, or it actually refers to denial. Now, as far as the meaning of this word is concerned as a term, it refers to those who deny the religion of God. So this is its meaning as far as a term is concerned, or as far as this word when it is used as a term. The Quran tells us what is kufr and who is a kafir. And it also tells us that who in particular become kafir. Both these two categories separately. So first we'll see how the Quran looks at who is a kafir without specifying who the person that we are going to call kafir is. So it's like a general standard which the Quran gives. So these are the two categories in which the Quran speaks of. One, it generally regards what is kufr and who is a kafir, and then it specifically calls certain groups as kafir. So we'll take a look at both these categories. As far as the first category is concerned, for example, when it says what is kufr, we can see that it has called many beliefs as kufr. So in Surah Ma'idah it says, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ. Indeed, they who said that God is Jesus, son of Mary, have committed disbelief. So this is one area in which the Quran believed to be kufr. Similarly, it says, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Those who do not decide according to God's law, they commit disbelief in his eyes. So you see, kafirun and kufr, if you can see, one is a participle, it's like a masdar which says what exactly kufr is, and in other words tells us who kafir are. Without specifying a particular entity or a particular person, they give us this general notion what kufr and what kafir is. Another category, or the second category, which I just spoke of earlier on, is one in which the Quran specifies, it applies this word to specific individuals. And when it does so, we can see that it does so only in two situations. The first of these situations is that when people themselves admit or confess to disbelief, when they themselves admit and confess to disbelief after a messenger has delivered the truth to them in its ultimate form, and they are left with no excuse to deny it. So they themselves say that we are not going to accept. So this is one area in which, after self-confession, the Quran calls such people as kafir. So I'm going to cite a few verses in this regard, and you can see how the Quran has used this word in this meaning. So this is a passage that I have taken, verses 75 to 77 from Surah Araf. Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has pointed out that there are verses which themselves tell us that the Quran has applied this word to specific individuals. So this verse, as I said, is from Surah Araf. It says, قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا لمن آمن منهم أتعلمون أن صالحا مرسل من ربه قالوا إنا بما أرسل به مؤمنون. قال الذين استكبروا إنا بالذي آمنتم به كافرون. Remember when after the nation of Ad, God gave you sovereignty and granted you ascendancy in the land. You make grand forts in its lands and carve houses from mountains. So remember the majesties of God and do not spread disorder in the land. The arrogant leaders or the arrogant elders of his nation said to the subservient among who had accepted faith, do you think that Saleh has been sent by his Lord? They replied, we do believe in the message which he has been sent. At this, those arrogant people said, but we disbelieve in what you have believed. So you see, they themselves have confessed to this, and they say that we are kafirs, or in other words, as the Quranic verse says, Inna billazi amantum bihi kafirun. We are deniers, we disbelieve in what you have believed. Another example in this regard, which relates to self-confession, and as a result of that self-confession, the person is regarded to be kafir by the Quran. This verse, now I'm going to read out before you, has been pointed out by Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi. This is verse 9 of the 14th surah of the Quran, which is Surah Ibrahim. The words of this verse are, أَلَمْ يَأْتِكُمْ نَبَأُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ قَوْمِ نُوحٍ وَعَادٍ وَثَمُودٍ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ لَا يَعْلَمُهُمْ إِلَّا اللَّهُ جَاءَتْهُمْ رُسُلُهُم بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ فَرَدُّوا أَيْدِيَهُمْ فِي أَفْوَاهِهِمْ وَقَالُوا إِنَّا كَفَرْنَا بِمَا أُرْسِلْتُمْ بِهِ وَإِنَّا لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّمَّا تَدْعُونَنَا إِلَيْهِ مُرِيبٍ. Has not the news of those reached you who lived before you, the people of Noah, the Ad, the Thamud, and those who were after them, who no one except God knows? Their messengers brought veritable signs to them. Then they inserted their hands in their mouths, that be silent, and said, we do not believe in what you have been sent with, and the thing you are calling us to, we are in a perplexing doubt about it. So you see, they are themselves saying this, that as far as we are concerned, inna kafarna bima ursiltum bihi, that we deny that which you have been sent with. So in other words, this is one category regarding specific individuals, which the Quran calls as kafir, and this category relates to people who themselves admit to disbelief, who say, yes, we are kafirs. This is one category. The other category from the Quran is one which become kafir or which become disbelievers once the message of truth relayed by no other being than a prophet of God, a messenger of God himself, delivers that to them. And then after deliberate denial, they are rendered as kafirs. So in other words, the second category for which the Quran applies the word kafir and disbelievers are those who intentionally deny the message of a God's messenger in his times. They exist in his times. To them, truth is delivered in the ultimate form by a messenger of God, and they deny it. So such people are called kafir by the Quran. And I'm going to cite some verses of the Quran which actually describes this law, because this is a law which the Quran is described, that messengers were sent by the Almighty. And these messengers, of course, this is a cadre which is above the normal cadre of a prophet. So these are special prophets who are called messengers, who deliver the truth to their addressees, and it's in such an ultimate way, in such an extreme way, that people can only deny them if out of stubbornness they have nothing to say. So in Surah Al Imran, verse 86, it is said, كَيْفَ يَهْدِ اللَّهُ قَوْمًا كَفَرُوا بَعْدَ إِيمَانِهِمْ وَشَهِدُوا أَنَّ رَسُولَ حَقٍّ وَجَاءَهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ وَاللَّهُ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. How shall God guide a people who disbelieved after their belief, and after they bore witness that the messenger, who is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is true, and after clear proofs had come unto them, and God guides not people who are wrongdoers. Similarly, it is after this extent that when they deliberately deny the truth, that the Quran pronounces that such are the people who are kafirs or disbelievers. And in the case of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that the 109th surah of the Quran, which is Surah Al-Kafirun, did exactly this at the time of migration, which was taking place in the times of the Prophet, when it was known that after years and years of delivering the truth, the disbelievers, or the mushrikun in his case, had disbelieved, and out of deliberate intention they were denying. The Quran pronounced them as kafir. So the words of Surah Kafirun, as we all know, are قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ لَا أَعْبُدُ مَا تَعْبُدُونَ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ وَلَا أَنْتُمْ عَابِدُونَ مَا أَعْبُدُ لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. Declare a prophet, O you disbelievers. You see, here the address becomes direct. O you disbelievers, I shall worship not that which you worship, nor which you ever worship alone, which I worship. Nor ever before this was I prepared to worship that which you worshipped, nor were you ever prepared to worship that which I have been worshipping. So now to you your religion, and to me mine. So this is how the Quran has actually said, and it states at one instance that لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ بَعْدَ الرُّسُلِ. After the messengers, people are left with no excuse which they can present before God to deny it. So in other words, we can see that this is the second category, that people who to whom a messenger of God delivers the truth and out of deliberate intention they do not accept it. So such people are called kafir by the Quran, and in the times of Prophet Muhammad we have found in the Quran that the people of the book who denied him were called kafir, and the mushrikun who denied him were called kafir. But this is something which was specific to him. As soon as he has left this world, no other authority except God has this prerogative to regard someone as deniers and disbelievers. Even the Prophet himself, even Prophet Muhammad himself, could not have called anyone a disbeliever unless after God had communicated that the certain people who he had addressed had ended up denying him out of deliberate intention. So the Quran is absolutely certain that people become kafir either through self-admission, or in the case of, as I said, Prophet Muhammad and all other indeed earlier messengers of God, when the truth was conveyed to them by a messenger and they did not accept it out of willful intention. After that, this is something which no one can do. The Almighty has a sole prerogative of pronouncing anyone as a disbeliever, as a kafir. The Quran and Hadith in this regard are absolutely clear that a person who does so is in fact violating the norms. He is violating the commands of God. And in fact, if you look at the Quran says in Surah Hujurat that this amounts to tanabuz bil alqab. The word tanabuz bil alqab is something that we all know from Surah Hujurat. And if we look at the tafsir, which is done by Mujahid and Ikramah, two very famous tabi'un of the times of the Sahaba, they say that tanabuz bil alqab, or calling people by names, actually signified in the words of these two illustrious authorities is to call someone as kafir or fasiq. So the Quranic words are la talmizu anfusakum wa la tanabazu bil alqab, which means that do not defame one another nor call one another with bad names. And as I said, look at Tafsir of Tabari, you will find that Ikrama and Mujahid have called that the shara, or the explanation of the word tanabuz bil alqab, is that when you say that someone is ya fasiq or ya kafir. So in other words, when you are calling someone as kafir and you're calling someone as fasiq, you are actually giving him bad names which the Quran has proscribed, the Quran is totally prohibited. In the case of the hadith of the Prophet, it amounts to a slander on the honor of a person. You see, the life, wealth and honor of a person, according to the Prophet's last sermon, was very, very honorable, and no one could violate the sanctity of the life, wealth and honor of people. And when a person is regarded to be a kafir, we actually violate his honor, his self-respect. So the hadith that we often quote in this regard, and we know the Prophet spoke of in the last sermon, he said these words, inna dima'akum wa amwalakum wa a'razakum bainakum haramun ka hurmati yawmikum haza fi shahrikum haza fi baladikum haza, which means that indeed your lives, your wealth and your honor are as sacred and inviolable as this day of yours, in this city of Makkah of yours, in this month of Zul Hijjah of yours. So you see how the Quran and Hadith themselves have prohibited that we go as far as call people as kafir. We have a very famous incident also from the times of the Prophet, when Osama bin Zayd, we know that he actually ended up killing a person who had professed faith. When the Prophet got to know of this, he became furious, and he said that, why did you kill a person? Because Osama bin Zayd knew that in the battle in which he had killed that person had just in order to save his own skin, in order to save his own life, had uttered words of professing faith. So he did not believe him. So Osama bin Zayd actually went on and killed that person because he thought that he's just trying to save his skin. When the Prophet got to know of this, he got furious and he said that, did you tear apart the heart of that person? And you could see that he is actually doing this because of saving his skin. So in other words, such is the benefit of the doubt which the Prophet in this incident has advised Osama bin Zayd. He was furious. He said that, why did you do this? Maybe he had done this out of his own intention. Maybe it could have been just because of the fact that he really wanted to profess faith. So in this regard, we have to understand the delicacy of this whole situation, that even a person who at times trying to save his skin does so, and we don't believe him, even then Prophet has said these words, and the words which he has said, afala shakakta an kalbihi, are so pertinent. That did you tear apart his heart to see that what he exactly meant? Now, viewers, let us come to certain narratives of the Prophet in which he has expressly prohibited people to be called as kafir. So the first of these is that Sabit bin Zahak reported that the Prophet said, he who regarded a Muslim or a true believer to be a disbeliever, it is as if he killed him, and he who cursed him, it is as if he killed him. So you see, he who regarded a Muslim or a true believer to be a disbeliever, it is as if he killed him. Such is the intensity of uttering these words. Then there is another narrative reported by Abdullah ibn Umar. He stated that God's messenger said that any Muslim who said to his Muslim brother, "O kafir," then one out of the two outcomes will result. If his brother is actually what he said, then it would be true. If this is not true, then what is said will revert to he who said it. And again, you can see the intensity here. The third narrative in this regard is reported by Abu Zar. So he reports that he heard the Prophet say, anyone who makes an allegation of disobedience or disbelief on someone, and if he is not what is alleged, then the allegation will revert to him. So we can see that Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has presented his view and has made his point that as far as declaring people as kafir or disbelievers is concerned, this is absolutely out of the question. It was the prerogative of God that took place either through self-confession in the times of God's messengers, or after they did not confess, but the books of God or messengers of God, they proscribed people, they actually declared them as kafirs or disbelievers once the truth that they had brought was communicated by them, and the Almighty then ordered them to declare these people as kafir. After the departure of the messengers of God, this cannot be done. And today, Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi has surmised that people who exist today, they cannot be called as kafir, neither can be declared as kafirs because of their beliefs, nor people who existingly are Muslims can they be declared as disbelievers, even if they profess certain beliefs that we think are not correct. So in that case, we will argue with them, we will discuss with them, their discussion will go on, but the way that you can call people who do not profess faith, who are outside the religion of Islam, the best name for them is non-Muslims. They cannot be called as kafirs in any way. Finally, viewers, Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi also read out parts and excerpts of his article, which is called Muslims and Non-Muslims. And he has shown that how, in his own view, yes, if people have beliefs which are not in accordance with the Quran, such beliefs can be termed as kufr or disbelief. But the person who professes those beliefs cannot be called a kafir because he is subscribing to a certain view and arguing in favor of it. So I'm just going to read out some relevant portions of his article, Muslims and Non-Muslims, its English translation, and this will show further how he has expressed his point of view. So he says that all those who follow any religion other than Islam are called non-Muslims. This term is also used for those who do not follow any religion. It is not a term of derision. It is only an expression of the reality that they do not believe in Islam. They are generally also called as kafirs or infidels. However, I have argued in my books that conclusive communication of the truth, which of course we have just discussed and also called Itmamul Hujjah, is needed to regard someone as kafir. And it is only God who knows, and only He can divulge the information that the truth has been conclusively communicated to a person or a group, and therefore now they can be called kafirs. Hence, After the departure of God's messenger, which is of course Prophet Muhammad, no person or group has the right to regard someone as a kafir. So this is the first part of his article. Then he goes on to say, similar is the case of people who renounce Islam and adopt another religion, or who do not follow any religion. What can be only said about them too is that they have become non-Muslims. This is because nothing can be said with full conviction as to how convinced is a person who is a Muslim by birth about the veracity of Islam. This is something which only God can know, and only He knows what is in the hearts. We should not dare declare a verdict about something which we do not know. If we have been blessed with knowledge, our duty is to only explain to people the difference between monotheism and polytheism, and between Islam and disbelief. We should also keep elucidating to them the precepts of religion. This is because we are not in a position to go beyond this and decide the faith or disbelief found in a person, or whether he deserves paradise or hell. Only God has this position and authority, and such verdicts are only His prerogative. After that, our people who are Muslims assert themselves to be Muslims, in fact insist on this status, but adopt a belief which is generally considered to be against the teachings of Islam, or interpret a Quranic verse or a hadith in a way which is regarded as erroneous by a scholar or scholars, or by the rest of the Muslims. For example, the belief of Imam Ghazali and Shah Waliullah that the culmination of Tawheed is Wahdatul Wujud, or the belief of Muhyiddin ibn Arabi that the termination of prophethood does not mean that the status and attributes of prophethood have terminated. It only means that a prophet has to be a follower of the Sharia of Muhammad, or the view of the Shiites that the ruler of Muslims who is called Imam is also appointed by God, and that after the Prophet, the Almighty Himself had appointed Ali as the ruler of the Muslims on this very principle. But this appointment was not accepted. Or the opinion of the celebrated thinker Allama Muhammad Iqbal that paradise and hell are not places but circumstances that will befall a person. So all these opinions and others similar to them can be regarded as wrong views and beliefs, and even branded as erroneous and deviant. But since their proponents adduce their arguments from the Quran and Sunnah, they cannot be regarded as non-Muslims or kafirs. What is the verdict of God regarding these views and disbeliefs? We should wait for the day of judgment to hear it. In this world, their proponents are Muslims, as per their own assertion, should be considered as Muslims, and should be dealt with and treated in a way an individual among Muslims is. It is the right of the scholars to point out their mistakes, to invite them to accept what is correct, to regard what they find as constituting polytheism and disbelief in their ideology, and also inform people about all this. However, no one has the right to declare them as non-Muslims or to ostracize them from the Muslim community, because only God can give this right to someone, and everyone who has knowledge of the Quran and Hadith knows that God has not given this right to anyone. So this is how he has summarized his view in this article of his that he read out, and he has said that as far as declaring someone as a non-Muslim or as kafir is concerned, this can only be done by the Almighty. He did this in the times of his messengers, after Itmam al-Hujjah or conclusive communication of the truth, and he will do it again in the hereafter. But once messengers of God have passed away, this Itmam al-Hujjah, this communication of the truth cannot take place. So therefore, in that period or in this whole post-prophetic era, people who do not accept Islam cannot be called as kafir, or who do not follow Islam cannot be called as kafir. All that they can be called is the title non-Muslim can be given to them. Even Muslims people who are within Muslims and they profess beliefs which seem to be heretical, we just enumerated some of them, they also cannot be called as kafirs. Yes, we will call their belief or a certain belief that they might be presenting as kufr, but we cannot call them as kafir. So we can sum up Ustaz Javed Ahmad Ghamidi's view that as far as declaring people as kafir or excommunicating them from Islam is concerned, no one has this right. Not even a state, no scholar, no individual can have this right. Only the Almighty has this right. He exercised it in the times of His messengers when people either confessed to their disbelief or they were regarded to be disbelievers because they deliberately denied the truth. Once these messengers have passed away, today Whether within Muslims, certain people profess views which might take them close to kufr, or outside of the Muslim community, there are individuals who do not accept Islam. None of these two categories can be called as kafir. As far as the second category is concerned, who are outside of Islam, the right word for them is non-Muslims.